Hey guys, since this is crypto and everyone has to make a fool of themselves at some point, I have decided to do a TikTok video. This is my first. Maybe my 15-year-old son should be doing it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I have to talk funny because that's how video producers talk. So, anyways, today we're going to talk about Yup.io's fundraise by A16Z. I think it's a really cool idea. From my understanding of what they're trying to do, they are essentially trying to create a system for consumer benchmarking of large language models. Now, so how does benchmarking work today? There are specialist benchmarking companies and academic institutions or groups which essentially benchmark different models against a variety of parameters and create these benchmarks that various models can be tested against. So now the trouble with these benchmarks is they don't really give you a democratized consumer feedback on what's actually going on. So most of these are very technical. Some of these are okay. Can you solve math Olympiad problems? Can you solve physics Olympiad problems or whatever? And then there are others which are which one is better at coding, which one is better at let's say solving math problems and so on and so forth. So but that doesn't really tell you for your specific need as a consumer and as a non-technical consumer, right, what's the best choice. So I think that's an open problem, and Yup is being created by Pankaj, who was Coinbase's head of consumer products, so the perfect guy for the job to create this a consumer marketplace. Think of Yup as Money Supermarket, or what's the other one? Go Compare. So the way now you might ask why this is a crypto project, right? Because Money Supermarket or Go Compare, which allow you to compare financial services like insurance or car loans or home loans and things like that, essentially they work perfectly fine without crypto. There is no token. So and I was joking that if you can't find paying customers for your product in the near term, then you essentially make it a crypto project. Now there is a joke in it, but there is also a serious aspect to it. And the serious aspect, the non-cynical serious aspect is, look, crypto is for solving long-term problems, right? Long horizon problems, for which and kind of finding a way to finance them in a more open network sort of way, by creating its own inherent consumer economy, right? So what Yup are doing is they're playing some of the similar techniques. Essentially, they have these Yup.io points. You join their Discord, you use their app online, you get some like 5,000 points for joining, and so on and so forth. So I tried to use it this morning, and obviously there's a lot of demand for those points because now A16Z has come in, so there is an expectation that will at least be north of a B in token FDV. We will see how that goes, but so I think what the token does is that the tokens in general, like whether it's Ethereum's token or Bitcoin or whatever else, right? We essentially get this opportunity to solve a very long-term problem by giving ownership to consumers in the short term, right? So Ethereum started with an ICO. It was a very basic network, and then now it's a very, very valuable network. But the early adopters got rewarded, and today we hear the same thing about Hyperliquid or Solana. So tokens have this dynamic, and there is a skeptical, cynical aspect to it, but there is also a genuine economic aspect to it. So in the short term, if you want people to sign up with a credit card and pay fiat, then I don't know how many consumers they're going to find. It certainly won't be me. I don't spend all day comparing models or getting answers from 20 models. Any one of these models is probably good enough for most of the times what I do. And as a developer, I have like 3 choices. So every segment is kind of has specialized models and so on. And I don't necessarily want to find the best model. Enterprises might have more evaluation time and so on and so forth. So if you want to replace a consultant or want to do consulting, deep research might be the best. OpenAI's deep research might be the best capability you have, and so on and so forth. But I think for something like this, to build a consumer market in the short term and getting people to pay fiat is very hard. So what you can do instead is you can essentially reward early adopters with tokens, and then obviously there is this whole like inbuilt captive economy dimension to it, which I think you can say it in a cynical way, or you can say it, but the model works, right? You can say it in a very and the model works, and it's the right sort of model for a long horizon problem like this. So but once it actually does work, right? So let's say this model works, then and consumers start to use initially they come for the incentives, then they like the product, and then they essentially adopt it widely. So what can happen is that you can go to model builders like OpenAI or Anthropic and so on, and then also smaller ones, right? Like Mistral. Funny enough, it's a small shop now compared to everything else that's going on. So you can essentially charge them to be featured, or you can charge them for referral. So let's say I ask the first query on Yup, and then I can actually charge them, and then I subscribe to a model, and when I pay that subscription fee, Yup can get a referral. So there are future monetization models, but in the short term, obviously, this is a product that's probably ahead of its time, and there is not enough demand for it. So token, I think, creates this equity aspect which essentially incentivizes people to adopt this type of thing early. Now the second joke, well, sorry, this is the third joke. The third joke is whenever crypto is not a winner takes all market, right? So you get a $10 billion project, or you get a $50 billion, $80 billion layer one. You get a $1 trillion layer one, which is Bitcoin. You get it's 2 trillion now. So Ethereum, which is 330 billion, you get Solana, which is 80 billion, XRP 140 billion or something like that. And then there is kind of the power law is a lot more gentle than, let's say, social media, where you have Facebook and you're like five guys and everyone else is dead. So I think since it's not a winner takes all market, you get a lot of clones, right? So you get like there's a Yup, someone else will raise another 30, 40, $50 million and create a Yup clone. It's going to happen. It's totally going to happen. And the joke I made on social was, that on Twitter was, there's going to be a paradigms version, there's going to be a blockchain there's going to be a blockchain cap version, and there's going to be there's going to be Van Spencer version, the fourth one, and then if none of that works, right? So and you're not a master fundraiser and you don't know how to raise $30-40 million, then you have to do what Alliance DAO does. By far the best fund I know, right? So I'm an LP in two funds, and God bless them. So they're really, really good. And the approach they take is, instead of these high capital, big VC, high funding type of structures, they use the social media dopamine virality in things like the Believe app, the Boris Pasternak thing, or the Pump.fun, again virality dopamine loop, right? This social casino aspect, and then Time.fun, which is very popular in the Solana community, things like that. So the .fun loop is what you have when you don't have a lot of capital to build something like this. Now, right, it's very capital intensive because you're going to need to pay for GPUs. You'll probably have to travel to California to cut deals with GPU cloud deals with Azure or Google or whatever else. So yeah, so when you don't have a lot of when you have capital and access to capital in New York or San Francisco or whatever, or maybe in Singapore, then you kind of build your business that way, a crypto business that way, and then you get your token distribution. You kind of make sure you have enough treasury to fund your operations for the long term, which is what it takes to build these things, right? And then or if you can't do that, then I think you kind of have to build this organically through this virality dopamine meme coin type of loop, which I think Alliance DAO truly innovated, and they've done a fantastic job. So all I'm saying is study this idea very closely. I think it's fascinating. If we can essentially get to consumer benchmarks one day, I think that'll be amazing, right? Transparency, and that's one of the core value propositions of crypto. So this democratization and more consumer first aspect is kind of the empowerment. That's individual empowerment. That's the value prop, and I think it's a fantastic idea. It's it could be built in a non-crypto way, but I think obviously the guys have done their work, and they have decided to build it in a very crypto native sort of way. And they always have the non-crypto optionality, right? So like Swap front end charges you, so maybe Yup could essentially build an equity business in the future that probably they have an option to do that. So it's a fascinating idea. I want you to study the model, as founders, and then think about how you can essentially, first of all, build something similar but better or differentiated in some way, but also how you essentially create apply this type of thinking, which is really cool, to the problem you're solving today, right? And then what sort of business model creation works. So I think a lot of founders, especially in Asia, tend to worry a lot about the technology or the token listing, but not so much about business model generation. At least that's my perspective, which could be a little bit biased. But I think study the model. I think it's fascinating. I haven't understood all of it, but what I have understood, or my sort of projection of it, I think it's fairly interesting. So I would definitely look at it. Thank you so much for watching my first TikTok video. Appreciate it. Bye. Have a nice day.